Hello, everyone. Jose J. Garcia with Mobile Home University here. Very special guest today. She is a real estate broker, investor, coach, a friend of mine. Danielle, how are you?
I am good. Jose, how are you doing?
Good, good. Now, you are at Toronto, Canada.
I am, and
Yes.
trying to stay away from COVID like everybody else.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be talking about some of that. I know it's still very active, especially where you're at. You're in a lockdown again, so we'll be talking about some of that. But for those of you who don't know you, uh, tell us about you.
Well, I'm a full-time real estate investor and, as you said, coach, entrepreneur. And yeah, I mean, for the last, since 2013, I made the decision to go into full-time real estate investing. I spent 2 years educating myself intensively on that. In the interim, got licensed as not just as a real estate salesperson, but as a real estate broker. And so I also have that in my investor toolbox. And yeah, and then I think it was 2015, September of 2015, I bought my first flip. Spent 5 years flipping. COVID happened last year, turned me kind of upside down on my business where I did a little bit of changes. So now I'm shifting more into long-term buy and holds and multi-units. And with my coaching, instead of doing one-on-one coaching, I'll be going online now and doing Zoom calls. Yeah. So not Zoom calls, but Zoom courses. Yeah.
There you go. Okay. Well, interesting. Yeah. So definitely, and I think most of us have had to pivot somehow, some way, and change. I mean, wasn't an option if you wanted to keep moving forward. Are you originally from Canada?
I am. Actually, a fun story. I'm like as Canadian as they get. So my history goes back. I have done a little bit of research, which is I say a little bit of research lately. It's very time consuming. I did do some a little bit of digging on my background, and I'm from New Brunswick originally. I'm French Canadian. And my heritage goes back. My ancestors landed here over 400 years. So before Canada was Canada, we were here
Wow.
with the French settlers. Yeah. And in fact, I am Canadian, and Canadians are very diverse because a lot, it's all immigrants at some point that kind of came over in the last century. And I'm actually, I come from a really small part. It's like a fishing village, a small, tiny blip in on the map, and there just wasn't a lot of traveling until recently. And so my blood is almost, I think I'm 97% French from France, even though I've been in Canada, like my ancestors have been here for over 400 years. It's crazy. Yeah, I love that story. Yeah.
Okay. I like it. Yes, you're Canadian, no doubt. So let's get into the real estate. You've been in business since you said 2013 is when you started.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
2013 is when I'd made the decision to move, and then I became active in 2015.
Been doing it
Yeah.
for a while. So
Yeah.
how different is real estate in America to Canada?
You know what? At the end of the day, there's everybody always says that. So one of the things that I find unique is that, people, want to invest in the States and they say, well, I can't do that. In the States is different. Or in the States coming into Canada, they're like, oh no, real estate is different. But ultimately, uh, fundamentally, um, real estate is the same across the board. You have to make changes for different markets and different areas and whatnot. But that doesn't matter whether you're in the same country or in a different country, because when you're looking at real estate in New York City, it's not going to be the same as real estate in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania,
Sure.
or in Mobile, Alabama, or in Winnipeg, Manitoba is going to be different than Toronto, right? But ultimately, and that's just the changes between a smaller market and a larger market. And that's, I don't think there's really any differences. You just need to make changes based on your micro market that you're investing in,
Learn
honestly.
the market. Sure. Now, I've talked to a few investors. I don't know how true this is from Canada also. I understand y'all don't have a Zillow, Trulia, sites of such.
Okay, so that's where there's a difference in the market.
Okay.
We do have a law here called PIPEDA, which is the protection of personal identity and that sort of thing. So, um, ultimately, our laws here are more stringent when it comes to protecting that personal information.
Right.
And so it's illegal to, let me put in a nutshell for you. It's illegal to sell lists here. So you can't, compile a list and then sell it like you can in the States.
Oh,
And so when you're trying to do marketing here, it's a little bit more tedious if you really want to, find a niche market. You have to go out there, build your own list, put it together. And that can be costly. Because let's say, so I'm in real estate, let's say I want to find out the name of the person who owns, let's say I want to target a market area and I want all the names of the owners of this, area, this neighborhood. I have to go down to the land titles office and pay per title to get that information, and it gets quite costly. Now in the States it makes sense because they put in the money and the time up front, and then they can sell it and multiply it. They sell that list and then they just sell it to, hundreds of people, and then they can recover that cost and make a profit at it. But here in Canada we're not allowed doing that. So it may not be the highest and best use of your resources when it comes to time and capital to be doing that. So that's something you have to weigh here. But because of PIPEDA, yeah, we don't have, and that's where Zillow gets all their information from and all of that. They compile all that data from list builders, and we just don't have that here. So there's just no Zillow or anything like that.
so if you're tuning in and looking to invest in Canada, definitely, keep that in your mind. And every market is different. Absolutely, you have to learn that market and how things work in there. Even here, state to state, county, city, everything changes. Some names,
Right.
whatever, but it's something that you obviously have to have the research before you jump in and think you can just do the same thing. It doesn't work that way. So interesting. So, what does your traditional real estate investment look like?
Well, it depends on when you say real estate investment, I mean, that's really broad. If you're doing a flip or if you're doing a
A
wholesale or
flip,
if you're
yeah.
doing, yeah.
You're not commercially flipping, right? Warehouses, buildings.
No, all my flips were single family homes. It always was intended for a launching pad to get me in the business, build my network, build the credibility, learn my mistakes on lower projects, smaller price point projects, so that I could get really strong going into bigger markets. So when I first got into flipping, it was a matter of, once I'm done, at the entry level price point, which by the way, here is, between 300 and 400,000. And then when we flip, we're selling at 500 and 600,000. So, that's like the entry level. So it's still a lot of capital, a lot of risk.
Sure.
But then I knew at that point, am I going to go into multifamily or am I going to go into luxury flipping? And I decided that I wanted to go into the multifamily. Now, what happened was I was just so busy. I built a business around flipping, and I was so busy managing and running that business that I just couldn't find the time to get away from it so that I could grow and go into what else, where I want to go, which was multi-units. So, and that's what happened with COVID.
Sure. What is one of the most aggravating issues you run into when trying to invest in some of these?
Flipping. One of the frustrating things is that you have a lot of, well, there's a few things. Where do I start? You have a lot of newbie investors who don't understand the numbers and they price you out. So that's frustrating because you know where the numbers ought to be for people to make it worthwhile for their time. And a lot of newbie investors, on top of that, they have realtors who don't really truly understand the flipping business. And they're behind them saying, oh yeah, this flip will only cost you 20, maybe $25,000 when essentially it'll be 40, 45. They say, oh, when you can sell it on the back end, you'll be able to get it at this number when really they haven't done the comps on the ARV, which is the after repair value. And they haven't done the proper comps. And they're just trying to, when it comes to realtors, it's a little bit of a self-serving industry. I'm a realtor, so understand I'm not knocking the industry, but you really have to find an investor-friendly realtor who, one, understands your business and two, isn't self-serving. So they really have your best interest at heart and the long-term relationship.
Right.
So there's difference between transactional and relational, right? So when you want to find people to work with in your business, you want people that are relationship-based and they're looking at the long-term gain as opposed to transactional. So, ask yourself, is this realtor transactional? Is he really looking at the big picture and saying, okay, he wants to set me up for success because he knows there's going to be more behind it, right? So there's
Right.
going to be another transaction after this and after that, right? And ultimately, I just find there's a lot of newbie investors that don't understand this, and they're just happy to have somebody help them out. And the realtor is just being transactional and telling them what they need to hear in order to make that sale happen so that they can collect their commission. And then the newbie investor, struggles a little bit through the process. Maybe the margins aren't to what they thought it would be. They might get hurt, hopefully not, at the end of it, because it happens a lot. I mean, and this is the two things that newbie investors do, they underestimate the cost of the reno,
Sure.
and they overestimate the cost of the property once it's finished. And so if you have a $40,000 margin that you're going to make, that's your 40%, your $40,000 profit, let's say, and you underestimate the reno by 20,000, which is easily done, and you overestimate the resale value by 20,000, again, easily done. Where's your profit? You just spent 6 to 8 months of your life, sweat, tears, blood, everything, and for what? For an experience, right? And if you're lucky, that's where you're going to end up if you're misled. And that's where, so to answer your question, the frustrations that I have is newbie investors going in, chasing that shiny object, not doing their due diligence and homework before they get into the game. And then they just pay more than they should for the property. And then the realtors behind them that are just transactional, kind of preying on them a little bit, saying, hey, here's a quick, easy sale I can get them to buy, right? And it's just a recipe for disaster. So I hate seeing stuff like that. I've had so many students come to me and when I'm at networking events, when I speak in front of the room, and they come to me, they go, Danielle, I got an issue. Can you help me out with this? And so that's really how I kind of designed my courses, was when I saw problems with people, consistent problems showing up. I'm like, let me design a course around that so that I can show people really how it is and give them the tools that they need.
Right. Okay. And I think some of this, as you're speaking, some of the coaching is coming out. We should be making
Sorry.
so good stuff.
I
Every
had
deal is different. Every rehab takes different times. But traditionally, what is the length of time from the moment you buy to the moment you sell on your investments?
Well, it really depends on a bunch of factors. One of the main factors that's going to impact that is whether or not you're pulling permits, and whether or not you have the ability, have an agreement with the seller to actually apply for the permit before closing, because that can really push things along. So now, when I first started doing the flips, I didn't always pull permits, and then I finally got into the habit of actually just permitting everything. So if you're not proactive, and I highly, like, when I coach people, I'll lecture you till the day of doom, like to the end of days on this. Be proactive, not reactive, because being proactive, everyone's like, well, I don't have the time for it. Oh, well, I'll just deal with it when it shows up. When you're being reactive, you're giving up control, because it's not on your terms now, it's on the circumstance. And so that's number one. Number two, when you're being reactive, typically it'll cost you more time and more money to resolve the issue on the back end. So coming back to your question, when one of the ways you can shorten the timelines is by being proactive and applying for the permits and getting the drawings done, all of that prior to closing. So if you can do a 60-day close, get your drawings done within 4 weeks. So right away you get your architect, your designer in, get the drawings done, submit them. It takes them, 2 to 3 weeks to get the drawings. So within 4 weeks, you should have it at the city. And then hopefully by the other 4 weeks, if you have a 60-day closing, by the time you close, you have your permits, and then you're good to go. And that's ideally what you want to do. Now, when we're buying, sometimes in order to give us an edge, we say we'll close in a short timeline. So, if the seller, I've done closes in 2 weeks, I've done closes in 3 weeks, right? So if I want to make my offer stronger and I go in firm with a quick close, that may not be an option for me. But again, even though I don't have the permit, by the time we close, I can at least start demoing and get myself to a certain point before I start doing inspections in any event. So I can probably do 2-3 weeks of working, so it doesn't really slow me down. But close to close, depending on the project, I've done one. So here's the thing. People are like, well, how long does it take you to do a flip? People are thinking just the project.
Mm-hmm.
I always call it close to close, because ultimately, when you're done the renos, that's not when you're done the project, right? You're done when you can sell it You've disposed of the property, you've given the keys, you can go back and close it off on your books. That's close for me. So I always talk in those terms. So because ultimately from the date of acquisition, from that date until the date of disposition, so the second close, it's like money out, money out, money out, money out, money out. So it's really important that you look at things from the perspective of close to close. Otherwise, you might end up cutting things a little bit thin and hurting yourself, right? So and that's another problem that I've seen a lot of real estate investors do. So yeah, so close to close, I've done 3.5 months, super fast. I've had one take me nearly a year. And that's just because I had issues with my designer. So we were 4 months in the permitting process.
Oh, wow.
Over 4 months actually. Yeah. So and then, and then by the time we started the project, it was a duplex conversion. So it was a larger project. Essentially, we're building 2 suites. And yeah, and then yeah, so I think close to close on that one was just under 12 months. Yeah. So
Interesting. Okay. And definitely, once again, I mean, you get ahead of the game. So, and it's all about knowing the market and knowing the field. So you're definitely very proactive on that. Let's shift over to COVID here for a minute. So I understand you're once again in a lockdown where you're at, second one around.
well, well, we're calling it a crackdown now because
Oh,
our lockdown. We just had a release yesterday that we were in lockdown, but people weren't listening. So now they're cracking down. They're going to be issuing tickets. They've enhanced the restrictions that we were at our max restriction, and now they've increased it even more. So, and they're going to start actually issuing tickets. So now we've gone from lockdown to crackdown, and that's okay. You know what? I personally am not afraid of COVID, but I am compassionate to those that are vulnerable to COVID. And so I
sure.
want to do my part, and I want to make sure that we're all being mindful. It's only temporary, and this too shall pass. And so, so I don't mind it so much. I think there's a lot of great things. A lot of people focus on the negatives of COVID, but I think there's been a lot of great stuff that has come out of COVID just due to COVID. So the first thing is last year, the first thing I noticed was families coming closer together. Honestly, just having a meal at dinner time with your family and having that ability to do that, I think it's really put into perspective what's important in our lives. For those of us, I'm a country girl, I've been urbanized. Those of us in the larger urban areas, we are just so friggin' busy in our lives that COVID slowed us down long enough to put into perspective what is really important. And that I think that was an eye opener for a lot of people, not just for the kids, but for your spouse or your significant other, just reconnecting and listening and seeing what's important to them. So that was huge. I was right from the get-go, right in the beginning, I saw that. And I went, this is going to be good just for people to take time to be human again, I guess, and build on those relationships, right? And so that was number one. Number two, I don't know about your area, Jose, but here in Toronto, when we had our shutdown last April, they initially they didn't put construction into a shutdown, and then after a couple of weeks, they shut down construction as well. And so when they shut down construction, I had all my projects came to a stop. So that really slowed me down because I was just so busy managing and running everything. And then while I got projects on the go, I'm looking and shopping at more properties, and I'm vetting more properties to buy. And essentially that got shut down too because we weren't allowed to do open houses, and the whole real estate market went
Sure.
really dormant really for 7-8 weeks, right? So from let's see, from the end of March through to June almost. So so I wasn't shopping, I wasn't renovating. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to enjoy this little time off. I'll just do some catch up on my office stuff and clean up some of the piles of paper that tend to pile up. And yeah, nobody talks about that, but it happens even for everybody. And so yeah, so I was just kind of doing that, and really I slowed down long enough to really sit back and go, okay, I really want to go into the multi space, but I can't get there as long as I keep doing this. I just can't. So I knew at that point I was at a crossroads. I had enough projects going on that I knew I had to hire a project manager, and it was overdue just to delegate that part so that I could move on and do other stuff and spend my time where it's best spent. And I didn't want to do that. I said, I don't want to own a job. I actually want to build a portfolio. And so it was starting to get painful selling flips. I was starting to keep them because I started doing duplex conversions and I was keeping them. And as long as you're not flipping, by the way, is an income producing activity. It's not a generational wealth building activity, right? So that was my job. That was where I was getting my disposable income. Without flipping though, what am I going to do for disposable income? So it was kind of a catch 22, like, where do I go from here? And I actually just decided to have faith in myself and in the universe. And I said, yeah, I'm kind of done. I don't want to flipping. There's a lot of liability, and I wasn't ready to trust someone, even if I paid them well, to manage my flips for me and do them in at the standards that I would do them. And that was primarily why I decided not to. I'm like, it's my name that's on this product. I'm taking that liability. They're an employee essentially. Am I ready to hand that liability over to somebody else? The answer was no. So I said, okay, well, now I'm going to make a shift. So I decided to wrap up the projects that I had going on, which I did. I had 2 in the pipeline. So I ended up selling them to other investors, both of them, which, by the way, one just made a killing on it. I have to say real quick, because I'm really excited for him. It was his first flip on his own. He bought it from me for $253 and just sold it 2 days ago for $560 or $580.
Very
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah. He did really well. So so I gave that up, finished the properties I had on the go, sold the 2 I had in the pipeline. And then I just put it out there to the universe that, hey, I'm going to go into the multi-unit space. And now I have a CMO, I have a CFO, I have a sales guy, and the 4 of us together, we're building an investment company. I'm working on a 25-door deal right now in Northern Ontario. I've got 12 doors that I'm working on. I'm putting an offering on today in Eastern Ontario. Yeah, I mean, I've just got so much going on right now. It's crazy. I'm launching a podcast, like yourself, launching a podcast in March. And that's to get all of my courses online now. And just instead of being in front of a room, I'm just going to be in front of, just putting myself out there more virtually.
sure.
COVID for me was huge. I mean, I just did a huge pivot in my business, like
That's great to
full
hear.
180, full 180. Yeah. And I think sometimes it's not a bad idea as business owners to maybe take a week off and truly just disconnect. Because when I disconnected, I was able to really reflect
Mhm.
on the direction my business was going in and say, is that what I want? So it's great to disconnect, go on vacation. But if you can like legitimately disconnect and do some self-reflection, even over a weekend, somewhere grounding where you can find some serenity, go for a hike, and just really, I don't think we spend the time, we just keep so busy that we don't spend the time really reflecting on whether or not we're moving in the direction that we need to go in. So not only was it huge for my business, but it was a huge learning lesson for me too now. So just to do that at least once a year, to do some self-reflection and say, is this
Right.
where I'm going? Yeah. Is this where I want to be going?
It's changed many things, definitely. And we were actually talking before the video here about time management, which is huge. There's never enough time, but if you don't make time for yourself, at one point I think it does catch up to you. It's too
Mhm.
much of a job at one point. What started out much like something you love, definitely starts questioning that. But coaching, we can definitely tell just from listening. I'm sure many people tuning in that you are a coach. Talk to us about some of the coaching you do.
Well, my favorite coaching is one-on-one, honestly. But at the same time, I want to touch many, right? And so, um, like I said, like, the investor that bought that house from me and just did a killing, they actually worked with me on another project. So I primed them a lot for what they needed to do. And they already knew, like, and when I sold them that house, by the way, I already had the permits on that house, again, just being proactive. So that really helped them. But they were able to take what I had as permits, and then they want to make a few changes. So then they already had my designer. I said, yeah, just give John a call. And then, so it's just really rewarding for me, because if I can help people get there and see them succeed, honestly, like, that's going to be a relationship for life, and we're going to help each other out along the way. And honestly, I am a firm believer that success, I'm not a Trumper, so I don't believe that you get to the top on your own. It's truly, 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 I don't believe it's even possible to find great success. You'll find success, but if you want great success, you're not going to get there alone.
Mhm.
And I am one all about acknowledging the people that help you along the way, and climbing that ladder, but you can't get there alone. You just can't. And so I'm all about, I have a very abundant mindset, and that's just working together as a team, as a collective, lean on each other, support each other. I mean, who else understands an entrepreneur than another entrepreneur, right? Who else understands a flipper than a flipper? I mean, when I have issues, who's the best person to lean on and say, look, I got these issues. I'm not going to talk to my spouse or my mom or my kids or my friends. They don't understand. And actually, in fact, I don't talk to anybody about my business outside of my business. And
Learn
my,
that alone.
yeah, and so, I think it's really good to help people out. And the coaching, really, I don't know, it gives me a really a strong sense of accomplishment and reward. Like, I just feel really good about helping people genuinely. And so I really enjoy that. But again, with COVID, I had to decide, like, when I'm doing this, is this getting me closer to my goals, or am I doing this because I really enjoy it? So now, again, I pivoted the coaching so that I can keep moving in the direction, towards my own goals, but I still get that feeling of reward of helping others, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you have to have relationships and network. I agree with you 100%. You can't, there's no one man team or one woman team. You have to have those relationships, and it's something that you have to grow and continue. It's not a one-time deal, even with the buyer or seller. Absolutely. So Danielle, I'm in mobile home manufacturing housing, and
Mm.
one of my goals is to bring you along to our field, by the way. But what is your knowledge in mobile homes?
Zilch. I know nothing, but I am confident that when you guys allow me to enter your country, and I'm able to go over and visit you, I'm confident that after a couple of days with you, I will become an expert, because I'll be learning from the best. So I look forward to that day, and I definitely will take you up on that invitation. I can't wait.
Absolutely. So, okay, where do you see the real estate market? That is huge, and we're hearing more. Affordable housing. There's always been a need. There's no question about that. It will continue to grow. It will blow up, I'm sure. But the real estate itself, where do you see that headed?
Hmm. As a real estate investor, I read numbers, they tell me a story. As a realtor, you speculate on the market. And
Mhm.
I'm not a speculator. I like to use concrete evidence and what's in front of me. And right now, the evidence isn't giving us a clear understanding to
I know.
know where things are going. And I'm left to speculate. And I do feel we are ahead of us. We're in line for some turbulent times. And I think that's going to be, I say turbulent, uncertain times. And so you guys have a lot going on down there in politics. With COVID, companies are doing a lot of restructuring. So the story that what I was telling people, a lot of people at COVID, when COVID first hit, reached out to me and said, Danielle, where do you see it? Exactly your question, where do you see it going? A lot of people were asking me about the economy. And honestly, my story then hasn't changed with my story now. I do feel that COVID is going to change the landscape for a lot of people. I think COVID has forced employers to go online, and a lot of small businesses to go online, which is going to affect the labor force. And the problem is this: with all of the stimulus that has been put into the government, into the economy by the government, it's skewed the reality, I think, of what's going to happen, because eventually they're not going to be giving us this, this money anymore. Now, I don't know about the States. I know you guys got $600 recently, but in Canada, It's been very easy. Like they have handed over money like just left, right, and center, over to people without question. They say, okay, if you're laid off due to COVID, here's how you apply, and that's it. But that will run out. And then what's going to happen after that government assistance runs out? A lot of people are misled to believe that their jobs are going to be there when COVID passes. And I think that's not true. Now, how much of the labor force is going to be cut as a percentage? I don't know. But here's what I'm going to tell you. I know I pivoted in my business, and I know other businesses are doing the same. And the number one cost to business is labor. So the fact that all these businesses, and when you're talking about corporate America and the corporate world, all of these businesses now, downtown Toronto is a ghost town. Like it's full of office space that's just empty right now. And a lot of it isn't going to get filled back up again at full capacity. I don't believe so, because the whole virtual space, the way we've been forced into, people do things out of necessity, and corporations and individuals have really resisted the technology because we like to live in our own bubble and what we're comfortable in. But COVID pushed everybody right outside their bubble, period. Like, nope, you're done. You got to work remotely. And whether you have that infrastructure or not, you got to do it. That's how it works. And
Yep.
so now what's happened is all the businesses with the quieter times, because that maybe manufacturing for that product has slowed down and whatnot, the management teams are still working. I guarantee you they're not sitting at home. I guarantee that. And what they're doing is they're meeting and they're saying, okay, well, where do we need to, how do we deal with this issue? And do we need to bring all these people back? And, oh, well, we could cut costs. And then you're talking to your CFO and you're like, okay, well, if we don't need to bring all these people back, like, how is it going to cost? So overhead, labor, top two expenses for business, right? And so, well, we can minimize the labor, we can minimize the overhead by trimming all of this. Guess what? That's what they're going to do. And so I think, I don't think the storm has come yet from COVID on the economic side. It's coming.
Yes.
Now, what does it look like? I don't know. The larger economies, in my opinion, the Torontos and the LAs and the Chicagos and the New Yorks, they'll recover relatively quicker. Vancouver's and Montreal's. The smaller economies are where they're going to really have a lot of pain, in my opinion. Yeah.
Agreed. Absolutely. We're definitely headed for the unknown. Nobody really knows. Things are going to change, no doubt. We're not just going to carry on. I talk to many investors, including podcasts, and same thing. It's not just going to pick up before COVID and carry on. Things will be different, no doubt. So one last question for you, but before for anybody getting into, or somebody, because one thing we can all use at this time is a little bit of motivation. What can you say to those trying to get started or wanting to get started?
Oh, do something. I don't care what. Do something. That's all that matters. That's it. That's it. And and if you feel that you just don't have the education, then go get educated. Go to a networking event. Listen to podcasts. But you got to do something every day. Do one thing every day that is moving you forward to your goals. It doesn't have to be significant. That's the thing. People think you got to make these huge things, but 1,000 miles was taken by one step followed by another, right? You just got to move. And you're going to find that, body in motion stays in motion, right? So if you just keep that momentum going, you build that habit, all of a sudden you're going to realize, oh, shoot. Oh, okay. I'm talking to other real estate investors, and oh, I have a network of people that are doing the same thing. And, oh, look, I'm part of a mastermind, that meets every week. And, oh, this is kind of cool. And you know what? It's okay if you don't know anything. It's okay, because I didn't know anything either. And I'm sure you didn't know anything either, Jose, when you started, right? We all started the same way. You just show up. You got to show up. So just do something. Ultimately, don't overthink it. Just do something.
You beautifully said. Absolutely. Hashtag take action. No doubt.
I love that. I love that.
We'll list it on here somewhere. So last question for you. What is your biggest goal for 2021?
100 doors.
100 doors. I like how quick that came. That is definitely a goal written, because you have to write out your goals. You have to have a vision. So 100 doors. Okay. And we'll talk back again this time next year. Now we're going to see where you're at. Something tells me you'll do even more than that. I see more than that delivery. So, okay. Then, it is a pleasure having you on here. Always great to talk to you. Any last encouraging words for those tuning in?
Yeah, you know what? Just go and do it. You know what? Just do it. You just gotta follow your heart. Honestly, you gotta follow your heart. One thing that I live by is congruency. Dalai Lama said, "Your actions, your words, and your thoughts have to be congruent in order to find inner peace." And maybe inner peace isn't, and I totally butchered that, but anyway, if you guys Google it, you'll get the right thing. But essentially, you want those three things congruent. And if you are, you're going to maintain integrity, and you'll also be able to be on the path that you should be on.
Love those quotes. Definitely. Thank you for sharing. Absolutely. So for anybody wanting to connect with you in your area, how can they do so? How can they locate you?
They can go to daniellechiasson.com. You can, if you want to write it out. Everybody spells my last name wrong. It's Chiasson. But yeah, daniellechiasson.com. There's a form there you can fill out. Reach out to me that way, and then be happy to help anybody anytime.
Absolutely. And we'll be sharing that link on the video here as well, so people can scroll and click on that directly. So, okay. Well, Danielle, I know you're busy. Uh, we will let you go, but thank you. Thank you for joining us today.
The honor is mine. Thank you very much for having me.
Until next time. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.